Now, I want to revisit an older anime that got lost in the shuffle of all these newer and more exciting animes, but it wasn't forgotten. Today we'll be talking about another, so I did some Google searches, found out it was the top 50 of all-time popular animes. Huh, who would have thought? And I instantly realized I was going to have to do a lot of digging to find out why this isn't getting a second season. But let's pause it here. If you're new to this channel, my name is Barry, and this is my Why Another Isn't Getting a Season 2. I'll talk all about what goes on behind your favorite animes, diving into the money behind it and any source material that's listed, or that we don't know about. I do the research that no one wants to do. Of course, links in the description for all those who want to see the sources and find out how I got to this certain conclusion. Now, if you like this kind of content, do make sure to leave me a like down below, because that sends the message to YouTube to push out the video, and I would really like to get to 500 likes on this particular video. Also, let me know down in the comment section, do you want a season 2? Comment yes or no. Lastly, a staggering amount of people like the video but don't subscribe. And I can't begin to talk about how much this actually helped my channel, so please do consider it. If you do, comment I subscribed, and I will make sure to leave a comment back to you. And if you're wondering why we're talking about another today, it's because I ran a poll, and in the poll I talk about what videos would you like to see, and another was at the top of the list, so another got picked. So in the next video, if you would like a certain, anime to be talked about, comment down below, and if it's popular enough, I'll pick it. But you have to be subscribed to do it. Review. Another is an extremely popular title back in 2012 and in 2013. It's a supernatural horror mystery anime that is based on the novel by Yukito Ayasuji. Ayasuji-san is known for his horror titles such as the Decagon House Murders, House Stories of Midorigaka, Bizarre House/Mansion Murder series, and many more. Another was first a novel rather than an actual manga or light novel. The story goes like this. In 1972, a popular student in class 3 named Masaki passed away shortly after starting the 9th grade. Everyone was very shocked, of course, by this news, but the class continued on with the school year as if Masaki was still alive. Even when the class graduated, they continued on the tradition the next year, but unknowingly the class started a curse because the following year, strange events would follow the rest of the class and continue on for 26 years later. And now in the present, Masaki is in the class again. Sakabara is a new student and has transferred to this class, and like the author, he's a horror book fan and a bit curious about Masaki. Apparently, there's some rules surrounding class 3 separately from the rest of the school that they have to follow if they want to live. Some of his classmates want to tell him the rules but are stopped by other classmates, mainly Sakuragi, Akazawa, and Machizuki. The curse goes like this though. Students or family members of the class died each month once the curse has started, and it can't stop until the next year. This continued every year. Because the students welcomed the souls of the dead, they would get like one soul of the dead each year, hence the term extra student in the anime. With everyone around receiving alternate memories and the new student receiving a new body, this became very difficult. Even the extra student doesn't know if he or she is dead, making it really impossible to tell. Still, the guest for this year is Masaki. The reason why is because she's been the trigger for a lot of these events to happen. The rest of the class treats her and Sakabara as the same. The students of class 3 tried many things to get the curse to go away, like changing the name of the class or the location of the class, or other things such as community service, good deeds, money, but it didn't work. 10 years later though, from once the curse started, they were able to come up with some ways to stop the deaths. They had to treat one student like they didn't exist to balance out the effect of having one extra student each year. The rest of the anime, they're trying to solve the mystery of how to stop the curse. They find out that the last class who actually solved it went to Yomi Shrine, where one student accidentally kills another student, but they killed the extra student so no one remembers the events. The current kids found out about this information, and the anime goes how you think it would go, with the last 2 episodes being a all-out survival game anime. Like, a lot of innocent people die because of this and a lot of meaningless deaths occur. I will say all the parents in the school are dumbasses, and a lot of the parents in the entire town are dumbasses. It is well known that kids die every single year at this school. So how about you move your kid to a new school or class if you care about them? Why is it that it's the small minority in this anime that they actually decide to take this up and leave? because this curse doesn't follow people to another town or another city. If you leave Yomoyama, it's over. You're free. Like, I understand Japanese society is a bit different from a lot of other societies, but with them trying to save face, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not buying that crap in this anime. If people are dying, they're gonna move. So I will say that's kind of an error when it comes to writing this when we know this information. Also, although this being the only real method of how to fix the curse for the 1 year for the class killing, a lot of kids could have still lived with this information. Masaki has the ability to see death, you see, so she knew from the entire time who the extra student was, or the extra person was. But seeing as Sakibara was very close to this person, she said nothing. That and her being extremely weird. Like, it's not hard to assume that people would think that she's the dead student, which, keyword, she's not, because she's just very, very, very weird. Very weird. As far as the difference between the novel and the actual anime, there's a lot. Like, in the anime, they never really explain why no one told Sakibara to avoid Misaki, but in the novel, they explain that very reason. They say if they were to acknowledge her existence, they would hence start the curse. Now, we do know this to be the case later on in the anime, but they don't write out and say it. Unfortunately, there is not any more material to the novel, so you're probably thinking there's no possible chance of a season 2, but you're wrong. There is the manga, and the manga does have an alternate ending than the anime and the novel. Still, the extra person is the same, but the events of this event does change, and there are differences with the characters, with their feelings, motivations, and different people die, as well as more of a backstory of Mikami Riko and Koichi's family. But also, you're probably thinking there's no chance of season 2. Trust me, you're wrong. Just wait till the end of the video when I talk about that exact point. The news at the end will kind of shock you, and it's kind of huge that no one's really talking about this, probably because they forgot or they just didn't know. Blu Ray. Now, this is the part of the video that really breaks my heart. Like, I want this anime to win, but this is where I have to just call how it is and talk about the numbers, and, you know, people don't like when that happens. I tend to look like the bad guy when doing it, and I don't mean to, you know, I don't mean to, but I just try and say what's reflected in the numbers and what the information I have. It is what it is. Another came out in winter of 2012, with the OVA coming out the next month in May, which, like every year, has some stiff competition. I will say I don't think it was the most competitive split though. Winter 2012 had the first season DxD, Naruto Shippuden, Hunter x Hunter, Mirai Nikki, Fairy Tail, Bleach, Misa Magatori, The Familiar of Zero, and the final part of Beelzebub. In fact, this was probably one of the best times it could probably just come out. Winter mainly had the continuations of well-known titles. Titles that are long and easy for people to lose interest in. And what that means is people want to watch something new each split, meaning they're going to turn their attention to the upcoming anime in another. Many of the shows around this time got looks and better ratings than they would have gotten, say, I don't know, 2018 or 2019, where new animes came out, but they were all basically 9 out of 10s. The thing is, these animes took all the money in 2012. For example, Naruto Shippuden sold 171,948 units. So yeah, that number already by itself is probably the biggest number I talked about of an individual anime that I've ever covered on this channel, and I've covered a lot of different animes on this channel, which begs the question, how much did another sell? It sold 2,688 copies, and then it did a reselling of 894 copies, which is a grand total of 3,588 copies altogether. So how much money did they make? They made 39,800,000 yen, which is a grand total of $360,880.53. For comparison, Chiayu Furu sold 4,573 copies. I chose this anime in particular because it got 3 seasons, and it came out in the same year as another. I chose this one because it's the best one to roughly consider if it would get a second season. So based on the number here, I would say it could get a second season. Just so you understand, I'm not adding any other revenue sources when counting or saying this. Now let's talk about the producers. The majority owner for this anime is Lantis. Lantis is known for high quality works such as One Punch Man, Mirai Nikki, Violet Evergarden, Devil's a Part-Timer, DxD, Haika, Bungo Stray Dogs, Chunobuyo, Emo, Koi, and that one time I got reincarnated as slime, Kuroko no Basket, Dragon Maid, and many, many more. I'm trying to say that Lantis basically owns a lot of mainstream animes. From what I see in terms of sales, if you want to get renewed with this producer, you have to be widely successful, selling around 10,000 copies, except for some cases like Hayaka, which was kind of special and they didn't get any, even though they sold the 10,000 threshold that they would need. It's probably because of source material, so I'm not really going to count that one all too much. Other one would be Devil's a Part-Timer, even though they're getting renewed right now. As we know now, 8 years later, is because they wanted to finish up the light novel as much as they could, and then Violet Evergarden received a movie instead of a second season. This one's actually the best case scenario because Violet Evergarden just got a movie. Movies that can be sold at the box office and that sold very well in Japan and is really much better than getting a second season because now you can also sell the Blu-rays after making the movie that sold very well in the box office. The only animes that really didn't get a second season are Classroom Elite, Mirai Nikki, and Another. Reason being is probably because they sold roughly around 2,000 copies at the time. They sold pretty much the lowest out of all the Lantis animes I've seen, so it kind of made sense why they didn't get it. What I'm saying is that the copies that they sold, if they were with a different producer, probably would be good enough for them to write out, just give it a second season, but because of this producer's pretty much very high standards, it was a no. And then keep in mind, source material at the time is not finished. Merchandising issues. Merch is another way people can support their favorite show or anime. As far as I know, the merchandising for this anime is very much a non-factor. As far as I know, merchandise like t-shirts, bags, figures, the usual stuff, is not linked to the main sourcing of the anime. Usually I'm saying like you would go to the main site and you would just simply buy merchandise of some type. Even if it would be at a different secondhand or thirdhand store, it's still the official merchandising for the show. The problem here is Another never really had any merchandise. Now you would see, if you go on say Google, type in Another, you could see t-shirts, you could see bags, you could see figures, but those pretty much are not official Another products that directly go back to the anime. They go to some other person who's making money off their likeness. Not having merchandise is kind of a serious dampener for having a second season, and unfortunately I can't really track for sure if it did have merchandising because I just don't have the technology for that yet or information for that yet. So as of this moment, I'm just gonna say they didn't have any merchandising to help them make more money for the anime. I will say another revenue source they did have was streaming. So they were on Crunchyroll and Netflix for about 9 years now. So they would have had a pretty good amount of money from streaming. But the best way to actually support the anime projects, like I said, is really by buying Blu Ray, streaming services that actually support the anime, and just merchandising. Final thoughts on the anime. Overall, I want to put this anime at a 2.8 out of 5, and part of me actually wants to move it down to a 2.7 given some scenes felt dragged and the sound would be a little bit too loud for me, with them also having too many dramatic scenes. Like I knew every time when someone was just going to die, while also knowing when they were trying to drag it out for suspense. I felt like the events could have been avoided a lot of the time if, Masaki actually cared and got herself involved. Like her silence and her keeping to herself as if she wasn't even a part of the situation was just crazy to me. None of the deaths would have happened if she actually did something. Like the only reason I understand why she didn't do anything is because of how much this would have hurt her only friend Koichi. Still though, her power would have ended the anime very quickly before it even started. And I couldn't remember what most characters even looked like in the anime as well. Like a big problem of it was just like no one had any crazy design that made me say, oh wow, that came from Another. And the art style didn't really feel inspiring at all either. Like I just was like, oh, I'm just watching some okay anime, Like let's be honest here. Masaki is the only character you remember from this anime, and that's because she has an eye patch. And you could find eye patches on a lot of different characters with the same features that she has, so still not very noticeable. And that's a pretty big flaw to me in general with this being a great anime. Great animes have their own key designs for characters and make them noticeable even if they're not the main character. As far as the season 2, the novel kind of covers the entirety of season 1, and the side stories for Mei was going to be made into an OVA rather than to another season. So you have that. And Reika was kind of the same way with her getting an alternate story instead of any season talk in general. And the alternate stories could have been adapted as well, because they're pretty good for the most part. The author Ayasuji is in his 6th year right now, and he's known, like I said, for being into horror and making horror mangas. And I'm gonna end it by saying this: Ayasuji plans on revisiting Another. He plans on making Another S, which is going to be a side story to the extra student. However, he did clarify when he said this that it wasn't going to be a sequel. Episode S is not a sequel, but a spin-off, which you can read right now as the manga is out. And like I said, it's pretty good. Some things are just very much different from what is shown in the anime, but he is planning on making another season of Another. He did title it Another 2, the sequel, and he is making that a separate work. So there you go. So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. He's clarifying by saying he's making an alternate version of Another, which is episode S, as well as making season 2 of Another. In my opinion, the alternate version in episode S is kind of better than Another itself, the original. Like, different people died, there's a different ending to it. The same thing happens essentially with who's the extra student, but it's still very interesting. I lastly do want to guess that Another 2 or season 2 of Another is going to probably have a different team around it because of money. Of course, all the source material for the video is going to be linked down in the description, so you can go check it out if you want to. Now, if you like this type of content, do make sure to leave me a like, because that sends the message to YouTube, and I really do want to get to 500 likes on this particular video. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, do you want a season 2? Comment yes or no. Would you like to see the alternate version or episode S as well? And lastly, a staggering amount of people like the video but don't actually subscribe, and like I said, I can't begin to think about how much this actually would help the channel, so please do consider it. It is free, by the way. But that's going to do it for this video. Peace.